we have studied group and the examples of group, some properties about the identity element in a group is unique, inverse element for in a group is unique, and cancellation, left cancellation and right cancellation laws hold. So this we have studied. Now we shall study subgroups. We shall first define subgroup, then we shall see the conditions to be satisfied by subgroup or criteria for subgroup, and then left coset and right coset we shall define, and then we shall study a special type of subgroup which is normal subgroup. And we have denoted the composition in group G. If A, B belongs to G, we denote the composition, that is binary operation, by dot A dot B, and hereafter we denote A dot B simply as AB, product AB, and we will not write dot. So it may be, but you should remember this binary operation may be usual multiplication, usual addition, or any other special binary operation that is defined separately. But we will hereafter write A dot B as AB only. Now we define subgroup. A non-empty subset H of a group G is said to be a subgroup of G if under the product in G H itself is a group. So the meaning is simple. H must be subset of G. G is a group and H is subset of G, and then H also becomes a group under the binary operation in G. We write the binary operation in G as product. For example, if you consider the set of real numbers, then a subgroup, the set of real numbers with addition operation forms a group, and the subset can be considered as set of integers, or the set of integers with usual sum is a subgroup. Subgroup of the group of real numbers with usual sum. Now you see, integers is subset of real number, so that is H. Integers, the set of all integers, that can be considered as H, and the group of the set of real number is R. So H is subset of R, or this may be denoted by G. Then set of real numbers we have to consider as group, then H is subset of G, and this H set of integers, all integers with usual sum, is also a group. The sum is the same. In R and H, the sum or the binary operation must be the same, and it also forms a group. Means it satisfies, H with usual sum satisfies the four necessary properties or axioms of group that we have studied earlier, which are closure, associative, existence of identity, and existence of inverse. So if these are satisfied, then H becomes a subgroup of G, and we can easily verify that the set of integers with usual sum satisfies all these properties of or axioms of group, and therefore this is an example. The set of integers is subgroup of the set of real numbers with usual sum. Now we shall consider a result, or which is a criteria for subgroup, and we write it as a lemma 3. Two lemma we have studied earlier for group. A non-empty subset H of a group G is a subgroup of G if and only if first AB belongs to H implies A comma B belongs to H implies A into B belongs to H, product belongs to H. Second, A belongs to H implies A inverse belongs to H. So this is a condition or criteria for subgroup. So when we shall say a non-empty subset H, for subgroup the set H must be subset of group G. That is first condition, it must be subset. And then second thing is it must be non-empty, and the second thing is this must satisfy the two conditions, if and only if. It is a necessary and sufficient condition. First is A and B are elements in H. That implies their composition or AB also belongs to H. So this property we know is a closure property, and thus first is closure property, and what is the second is existence of inverse. Every element A in H has inverse, which is A inverse in H. Then that H becomes subgroup of G. So this we have to prove. Now we shall consider the proof. There will be two parts. First, assume H is a subgroup of G and then prove 1 and 2 holds, and conversely assume 1 and 2 holds and then prove H is subgroup of G. So this we shall prove first. Let H be a subgroup of G. This is first part. Let H be a subgroup of G. And because H is subgroup of G, H itself is a group. H itself is a group by definition. And if H is a group, then it must satisfy the closure and existence of inverse properties, and therefore 1 and 2 holds obviously. Then 1 and 2 holds by definition of group. Now the second part, converse part, we shall consider. Conversely, suppose 1 and 2 holds. And what we have to prove is, conversely suppose 1 and 2 hold, and we have to prove H is subgroup of G. And to prove H is subgroup of G, what are required properties? 1, 2 gives two properties. We have to prove H is subgroup means H satisfies all the properties of group or axioms of group. And here closure and existence of inverse is given. So what are the remaining two? We know the 4 necessary properties or axioms of group are closure, associative, identity and inverse. So here closure and inverse is given. Now remaining are associative law and the existence of identity. So these we have to prove. So to prove H is subgroup, H is subgroup of G, we have to prove associative law holds. holds in H, and identity E belongs to H. So these two we have to prove only. Then these two and these two axioms becomes four necessary axioms of group, and H itself forms a group, and H is subset of G, therefore H will be subgroup of G. Now the first about associative law. See, associative law holds in G because G is group. G is a group, and therefore associative law holds in G. And H is the subgroup of G, that means all elements of H are again in G, and therefore associative law also holds in H. And since H is subgroup or H is a subset, it is given H is subset of G. Associative law holds in H, or that is satisfied by the elements of H also, because it is satisfied by elements of G and H is subset of G, therefore associative law is also satisfied by elements of H. And now what remains is existence of identity. Next, we shall use this 2 and 1 because we have assumed these are true. Now by 2, A belongs to H implies A inverse belongs to H. And now by 1, if these are the two elements A comma B are the two elements in H, their composition also is in H. Now you see A is in H, A inverse is in H, and therefore their composition must also be in H by 1. Therefore by 1 A into A inverse, and which is, we know by definition, the product of an element with its inverse is identity. So this is E and that belongs to H. So this shows that identity belongs to H. Thus identity element exists. Identity element exists in H. And this proves H is subgroup of G. This proves the lemma. So the proof is complete, and now we remember this is general condition for a subset to be subgroup of G, closure property and existence of inverse. Now we shall consider next result as lemma 4 for finite subset H. Let or we shall write the similar statement, a non-empty subset. And one condition here is non-empty finite subset H of a group G. Is a subgroup of G, or which is closed under multiplication. Is a subgroup. Now what is the difference in third lemma and fourth lemma? there is only one condition, closure condition is given, and here the additional condition is finite. H is subset of G, but it is finite, and here it is general. There is no condition as H must be finite. A non-empty finite subset H of a group G, which is closed under multiplication in G, is a subgroup of G, and that means only the first property is given, the second is not given. And here we have proved a two-way relation. A non-empty subset H of G is subgroup if and only if these two properties are satisfied. Now first property is given in the theorem, it is closed under multiplication. What now is required to prove is the existence of inverse. So we shall consider the proof of this. So we know that H is a subgroup of G if H is closed, or if and only if H is closed under multiplication in G, and identity belongs to H by this lemma, by third lemma. So this we know. Now in the theorem it is, or in the statement of lemma, it is given that H is closed under multiplication. Given H is closed, or closure property satisfies by the elements of H, means H is closed. H is closed under multiplication. So what we need to prove is the existence of inverse. See, this is not identity, but second property is existence of inverse, and A belongs to H implies A inverse belongs to H. So this is the second property. First is closure, and the second is the existence of inverse. Now we need to prove only the inverse. So therefore we have to prove, first is given A belongs to H implies A inverse belongs to H. Now let A belongs to H. Now by closure property we can write like this. So A into A, or we need not write now dot, A into A is A square, this belongs to H. Again A square A, that is A cube, that also belongs to H. It's a closure property. A square is in H, A is in H, therefore their product, which is A cube, also in H. And this can be continued, and we will have A raised to m belongs to H, and again A to the power m plus 1 belongs to H. So these are the infinite number of elements, or thus we have the collection of powers of A are all in H. This is the meaning of closure property, if the set is finite, or thus the infinite elements A square, A cube, A to the power m are all in H by closure property. And but H is finite. So it is given, see, H is finite. This is important condition here. And how now it will be possible? These are infinite number of elements are all in H, but H is finite. So this is possible only if there are repetitions in these elements. For example, if you consider H as, say, this example we have seen earlier, 1 minus 1, or you may consider I minus I also. Complex numbers, I and minus I. Now this is finite, but you may see all the powers of 1 square, 1 cube, etc. all belongs to H, and these are repeated. Similar, minus 1 raised to 1, that is minus 1, but minus 1 raised to 2 is again plus 1. So it also belongs to H, or that means we can write this as, see, the powers of minus 1 square, minus 1 cube, etc. These are infinite, but all will be belonging to H, because the powers of minus 1, integer power of minus 1 will be either 1 or minus 1, and that is in H. So all belongs to H. So here these are repeated. Here it is minus 1, this is 1, this is minus 1, further is 1, etc. So it is repeated, and that is the same meaning. These powers of A will be repeated because H is finite. And repeated means, now here we have say minus 1 square is same as minus 1 raised to 4. This is a repetition because this is 1, this is also equal to 1. Minus 1 cube is same as minus 1 raised to 5, and thus in general we can write the repetition as a raised to r is equal to a raised to s. R and s are different integers, and thus we may have, so there must be repetitions. So these there must be repetitions in these elements. And so let a to the power r is equal to a to the power s, where r is greater than, we may consider greater power here, left side, r is greater than s is greater than 0. These are positive powers. And now we shall consider, this implies we multiply both sides by a raised to minus s, and that is a raised to r, a raised to minus s is equal to a raised to s, a raised to minus s. And this will be a raised to r minus s using laws of indices, and a to the power 0, but a to the power 0 we consider it as identity element. It is defined to be identity elements, and hence identity elements belongs to H. A raised to r minus s belongs to H because these are the infinite number of elements in H, and thus identity element exists in H. So this belongs to H. Now we have assumed r is greater than s. So we may consider r minus s minus 1 will be greater than or equal to 0. At the most will be, at the least it will be 0. Otherwise it is greater than 0. Either equal to 0 or greater than 0. And now we will consider as therefore, if it is greater than or equal to 0, here it is a raised to 0 is also there in this collection, 0, 1, 2, etc. And here we have a raised to 0 is equal to e belongs to H. Now this is greater than or equal to 0, therefore a to the power r minus s minus 1 belongs to H. 0th power is also there, or positive power of a are all in H. So therefore this element is also in H. And or also, what is the product of a and a to the power r minus s minus 1. So this will be a to the power r minus s. This is one power, and adding the power using laws of indices we get a raised to r minus s. But a raised to r minus s is e. So this is equal to e. And what this shows? This shows that the product of these two elements is identity, means these two are inverses of each other, or that means inverse of a is the second element. So this shows that, or this implies, A inverse is equal to A raised to R minus S minus 1, and that belongs to H. Here we have mentioned that this element is in H and which is equal to A inverse. A inverse belongs to H, and this is what we wanted to prove. A belongs to H. We have started with A belongs to H and we have proved A inverse belongs to H. So simple laws of indices we have used, and here these powers must be repeated because it is finite. H is finite and this collection is infinite, and then it is possible only the repetitions are there, and therefore we assume these two are equal, and there is the assumption R is greater than S. If R is less than S, interchange the sides, and then using laws of indices we get here as A inverse is equal to A to the power R minus S minus 1, and that belongs to H, and this proves the lemma, or therefore A inverse belongs to H, and this is what we have to prove, and this proves the lemma. So this completes the proof of the lemma, and the remaining part we shall continue next time. So thank you.